Get you more labour reaction then to today's nationwide stairway stay led by Cosatu, the Trade Union Federation, and speak to Policing and Prisons Civil Rights Union spokesperson Richard Mamabolo, who I believe is joining us from Johannesburg. Richard, good to speak to you. Just indulge you for a moment. We'll talk about today's demonstration shortly, but you are in the policing space. News today, confirmation at least from the presidency, that a process is underway leading to the suspension of the Commissioner Stole, possibly, and an inquiry. Your reaction as a union in the sector?
Yes, thank you, Tambegile. We obviously are looking into the facts around this matter, and we will be issuing a comment within the next few hours.
All right, so no official comment yet, but we're going to come back to you then in the next few hours once you've formulated your thoughts on this. Let's talk about the nationwide stairway today. A long list of issues that Cosatu had said need to be addressed. Unemployment. One of the other things that I know you've spoken about is what you say is a deliberate attempt to really push organized labor out of the space. Who is championing that? Who's doing that?
Yes, I think one thing that we need to remind ourselves of is that Cosatu is the federation that represents different labor unions. And of course, I think within our sector as well, there are issues that have obviously covered all sectors, specifically the issue around the plans to really deal a huge blow with bargaining. You know that there have been different agreements that have been taken over the years, yes, yet they have not been implemented. Within our criminal justice cluster as well, just 2 weeks ago, we had a CEC where we reflected on numerous agreements that had been signed but not implemented. So those are quite worrying trends that we think basically nullifies the process of collective bargaining, and these have obviously had a negative impact on our members. In fact, part of the issues that Cosatu raises as well have been the budget cuts. You'd remember that within the SAPS as well, there had been commitments by the president to have violent crimes within the next decade. Now, some of these projections are basically impossible under conditions wherein there are uneven allocation of resources and the budgetary constraints keep getting worse. You know, we have obviously been in the forefront of fighting the COVID-19 pandemic. And you remember that since then, training for new recruits had since been stopped for the past 2 years, meaning that the staff complement has obviously declined, while at the same time we've got a population that is growing. So conditions have not been easy for our members, and that is why we are also supporting this march that Cosatu has had today to say that there needs to be urgent measures in ensuring that the current trajectory does change, because at the end of the day, if you've got by June we have over 3 million people who have lost their jobs and the trajectory does not change, it means that even in the future we will still have such challenges. And of course, wherever the socio-economic conditions of a country are not in the best interest of the large population, criminal activities and violence and
I think we've lost our audio link to you, Richard, unless I've just lost you in my ear. Can we still hear Richard? All right, we've lost Richard Mamabolo, spokesperson for the policing union Popcru. I'm not sure if we're able to get him back on, but if you are just joining us, we were talking with Richard there about today's nationwide stairway led by Cosatu and its affiliates. Among the issues they want to address are job losses. Richard was saying in the policing sector, for example, they want the resumption of the training of new recruits in the police service. That ties into issues around staffing at police stations, which then locks into one of the complaints that we've heard in the release of the annual crime statistics, having adequately trained police officers at those counters when South Africans go to report crimes. Richard, I'm told we have you back on. You were just talking to us about the issues that you are hoping to get as a benefit from today's demonstration, and you had just spoken about the training of new recruits. Pick up from there, please.
Yes, I was saying the fact that there have been budget cuts within the SAPS meant that the issues that we currently face as the SAPS looking into the allocation of resources is obviously something which is going to be delayed because, according to the agreements that we have had, of course, they were supposed to have been implemented by now. That is why, as a union, we've been pushing for the restructuring of the SAPS. The importance of restructuring the SAPS is that it will deal with the bloated upper structure at national and provincial levels, ensure that there's no duplication of roles. I think you would be aware that there's been a lot of infighting within the SAPS, especially at the national level. And of course, unfortunately, the SAPS has only had one national commissioner who has finished his term of office. So we need to look into really dealing with the culture instead of focusing on dealing with individuals, but focus on ensuring that we change the culture that the organization is running, in ensuring that in the future there could be some form of sustainability. And of course, with this restructuring, we are quite sure that a huge chunk of the budget of the SAPS will be ensured that it goes down to where crime is actually happening, which is within police stations. And of course, that would also mean that those generals who are sitting in those top positions at head offices and provincial offices must come down as well. So this is a short-term intervention, but if budgets are not
Okay, we've lost Richard Mabolo again. That audio keeps coming and going. I think we can park it there for a moment. Richard, are you back?
I can hear you.
Let's give it one last try, and I want to ask you about what you were talking about, the instability at police management level. Do you believe as a policing union that the people running the police service in this country have the necessary competence and know-how to do it adequately?
Well, it's more about collective leadership for us, really. It's not about individuals. We have obviously come out to say that the fact that there has been some levels of instability is quite worrying. So that is something which needs to be dealt with. We need to look over personalities and focus on what actually we want to see the SAPS achieving in the long term. And I think as well, we have said this even in the past that, whenever there are new appointments, there should be vetting processes which ensure that we do not have people who are not going to finish their terms.
Okay.
Because the consequence of leadership not finishing their terms, it means that at times, there are certain plans which are already underway, and immediately when they're supposed to be concluded, you've got a new change of leadership, meaning that they come with different approaches to certain issues that could have been resolved. So we do need consistency.
So, Richard, I know you said you're going to, as Popcru, send out a statement on the possible suspension of the Commissioner Kehlas Tole later today, but given that that is what is almost likely to happen in this case, do you worry that his departure, permanent or temporary, will add more to the instability at management level?
We're not going to preempt on that. We will wait for those. We had indicated that our officials will obviously be sitting and discussing that matter. But generally, I think what our concerns have been what is happening on the ground with regards to police, the uneven allocation of resources. Of course, we want to ensure that this restructuring process it does not take a long time in ensuring that we deal with all these identified challenges that have been witnessed over the years.
Something else I'd like to ask you about, and perhaps as a final question, today, among the issues that Cosatu was calling to have addressed by government and indeed the private sector is that of gender-based violence. At your last CEC, Police Minister Begicele then shared that there is a worrying trend that's been observed, and that is an increase in the number of gender-based violence cases in which police members are the accused. What is your position on that as Popcru, and how worried are you about it?
Look, we're equally worried about the levels of gender-based violence. And I think since the beginning of the lockdown, we've seen the numbers going up. I think what the SAPS and, of course, Popcru has equally said that we need to ensure that we focus on ensuring that police stations become victim-friendly zones. But as well, this is not only a police matter alone. We need to ensure that even from within homes, because gender-based violence normally happens behind closed doors, behind different houses. So we need to obviously have some forms of campaigns, which would obviously be a process that would need different departments to participate in. As for us, we have already started working closely with Safer South Africa Foundation in ensuring that we focus on actually engaging young people from different primary and high schools around what the general status of the criminal justice cluster, and also looking into issues around gender-based violence. So we are, as a union, making efforts in that regard. However, the recent revelations by the minister are quite regrettable, and it's something that obviously would need a joint effort in dealing with.
Richard Mamabolo, spokesperson for the policing union Popcru, good to speak to you as always. Thank you.